not better than Austin Allen.
No.
He's not better than Vokalek.
No.
Like,
he's targeted more.
yeah,
Is what he is. You know,
Yeah.
and so it's obvious that you know, not to do the whole roommate bit, but it's obvious that them being roommates is like it's a positive,
Oh, yeah.
but it's also a negative for the offense because.
Before we move to the defense, I have a question for you. I was told, I did not hear this. I wasn't listening that day, unfortunately, but I was told that you too, in the beginning of the season, questioned Thomas Fidone and his effectiveness.
This is a safe space, by the way. For you.
Am I going to get shushed?
No,
I've been
by
beating
us.
this drum since the night of the Illinois game. We had people over for the Illinois game, and I was a little tuned up. And when everybody left, I was watching Connor McFadden's Corn Craze post-game show, and I commented with him, and he debated that whether or not, and he loves Thomas Fidone, thinks he's amazing. And then it got brought up the next week. He interviewed Carricker, and Carricker was like, "Oh no, Thomas Fidone, gobble gobble gobble," and not turkey. But I brought this up to Jed, and he's like, yeah, man, Josh is like the only other person I've heard not sucking his dick. And I was like, well, we need to fucking talk to that guy because I think he's been on our show. Terribly underperforming.
Hello, I have arrived. Yeah, so this was after, I believe it was after the Minnesota game. And the funniest part about this is this all starts because of an Iowa fan tweeting at me and saying something, because we had talked about him on the air, and I just said, like, I've given up hopes on him becoming that player that we hoped he could be.
The superstar.
Yeah. And so again, every time I explain this to people, I feel like it's such a rational opinion, and then obviously it's turned into something else. So I have kind of, my expectations have moved. I don't think he's going to become an All-American type tight end anymore. And so this Iowa fan tweeted at me about him, and I responded something like, yeah, I put, to bed the hopes of him ever becoming that guy. Well, Mr. Fidone apparently searches his name on Twitter. Because I am calling I'm calling a soccer game later that night, and I opened it up at my phone at halftime. I'm like, why do I have so many mentions right now at 7:30 on a Friday? I'm like genuinely confused as to why this would happen. And I end up finding out, there's a tweet from Thomas Fidone, and it's just a tire fire. So I mute the conversation, so I'm like, I'm not going to see this anymore. So the first time that he scores a touchdown and he does the shush thing,
just gets blown up.
Everyone's like, he did that to you. And he basically says after the game, yeah, I did, he doesn't name me, but yeah, he did it to me. It's the weirdest thing. It's so odd. And so then this caller called into our show within like 2 weeks after that, and he was like, he wanted me to apologize, and I was like, for what? I don't think he's going to be an All-American. I think he's good, and I think the guy was caught off guard because he didn't know what I said. He thought that I said he sucks. I just said I don't think he's going to be, the best tight end in the country. And so then he got really, really mad at me, and yeah, it's been an odd season. No one really tweets at me anymore, though, because he hasn't really caught the ball a whole lot lately.
That's my biggest thing is I wasn't trying to say that he's terrible by any means or that he's a bad tight end.
Exactly.
Blah, 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 blah. He's an average tight end.
He's just an average
tight end. He maybe
tight end.
even is slightly above average. But for everything he was built to be coming in.
And that's what it is.
And he's had a bunch of injuries and all of these different things that have not allowed him to play for a lot before this. I think it kind of pussified him. He doesn't like to take hits. He gets barely brushed and he goes down if he does have the ball, if he catches the ball. He drops it constantly. You don't see him reach for balls. You don't see him try and make those spectacular plays you expected pass-catching tight end to make.
Yeah.
I think that's why you were going off after the Illinois game, because he had like 4 drops by himself in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if they just don't count tight end drops anymore for Nebraska games or what, because
they're not supposed to catch the ball. We're not going to
the last couple of games, I'm like, I know I've gone back and looked. He's dropped passes, and they're not clocking them. So I don't know what the deal is, but
like of all the tight ends that we've had over the last handful of years, he's not better than Austin Allen.
No,
he's not better than Vokalek.
No,
like
he's targeted more.
Yeah,
is what he is. And so it's obvious that not to do the whole roommate bit, but it's obvious that them being roommates is like it's a positive, but it's also a negative for the offense because it seems like all these interceptions that Harburg has thrown lately, he's airmailing Fidone and they're just going right over his head.
And with how big Fidone is, how the hell do you airmail him?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you throw it 20 yards past your target. That's how you're pulling that off.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.